What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Armchair Scouts. Today is our Week 6 preview of college football, talking top Eagles targets to watch, talking Ole Miss against South Carolina. Our player of the week picks joining us. He is Ryan Reese at Philly Sports PSA. What's up, Ryan?
Not much, man. Ready to go for what should be an exciting game of the week. And there's a couple other not so bad games as well to look forward to.
And also joining us, he is Mark Henry Jr. at Mark Henry Jr. _. What's up, Mark?
Nothing much. I'll be honest. I'll say it. It might be the weekend you take your wife or your kids to go pumpkin patch picking or apple picking. That is, unless you're like me and you're going to the Phillies game this weekend. But I think this might be a weekend you can follow on your phone a little bit and watch the highlights that Dibes puts out on Sunday and Monday, recapping the games. But we got some big weekends coming up. Maybe you got to save some relationships out there. Go to the pumpkin patch. Maybe that's the way to go this week.
That's so funny. It's so true. Ole Miss, South Carolina. There's some fun Eagles targets, though, in there that we will be breaking down that you need to know for sure. But let's jump into our top Eagles targets to watch. Mark, we'll lead us off with you, man. Who's your guy?
I'm going with a wide receiver, which maybe that's not, where your first, thought would go for an Eagles target. But this guy's been killing it lately, and I feel like I just wanted to highlight him while we had these stats so far on the year. He's a guy who, Trey Harris, wide receiver from Ole Miss, 6'2", 204 pounds. He's a transfer from Louisiana Tech. So he was at Louisiana Tech for 3 years. His last year at Louisiana Tech in 2022, he had 65 catches, 935 yards and 10 touchdowns, about 80 yards per game. He went to Ole Miss last year, transferred in for 2023. Basically, pretty similar stats to what he had that last year at Louisiana Tech. But now he's looking like he might close to double those stats if you look at what he's on pace for. He had, through 5 games, he has 49 catches for 804 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's averaging 161 receiving yards per game. If you plug that into your calculator, folks, that's a pretty great year. That's on pace for I had it and I lost it. 1,932 receiving yards is what Trey Harris is on pace for, and I don't really see Jackson Dart and the offense there slowing down. Obviously, they had a tough loss at Kentucky last week. I think that had a lot more to do with the offensive and defensive lines, because even in that game where the offense came up a little bit short, Trey Harris had 11 catches for 176 yards and a touchdown. He was one of the only reasons that they were even in that game. And I think you're going to see more of that going forward. I've seen him projected as a second-round guy. I think he can be a first-round guy.
Yeah, he's right there as one of the top vertical threats in college football, period. Ryan, who's your guy?
By the way, love Trey Harris. Loved him last year as well. He shined a little bit in a few games, and that's kind of what caught my eye. But I'm glad he's blowing up this year. But I am gonna stay on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm gonna go into the trenches, and I'm gonna go with right tackle Johnny Cornelius out of Oregon. He is their right tackle. Honorable mention there for Pac-12 last year. This guy is, we got to think about life after Lane Johnson. Obviously, we know the record when Lane is not in there, it is not good. So we really, really do need to have a solid backup plan for whenever he does retire. I think this might be the year to do that. So Cornelius is, an elite pass blocker. He allowed 0 sacks, only 11 pressures, in over 500 pass blocking snaps last year. He's continuing that this year as well. He's got great length, great reach. He's really, impressively athletic and lateral for somebody of his stature there. He was originally a transfer from Rhode Island, not last year, but the year before that. But he's certainly grown at Eugene these past 2 years, and is such an important part of that offensive line there. He's 6'5", 308, and just absolutely came in and dominated the right side of the line. And again, this is a guy that plays right tackle, and that's exactly what we need. So we don't have to worry about switching sides, none of that. So this is a guy to certainly look for if the Eagles are going to finally pull the trigger on their Lane Johnson replacement, Cornelius.
Yep. And a week after 15 or 16 missed tackles, we're going to linebacker this week. Just a massive need for the Birds, and we're going to Iowa. I'm looking at a great matchup there, and I think Iowa has an amazing defense, and they're going up against Ohio State. And Jay Higgins is a really interesting linebacker. He was the top leader of a defense, that won them the Big Ten West title last year. He led the nation in tackles with 171. He had 5 tackles for loss and picked off 1 pass in 2023. This year, he's taken over for Jack Campbell at middle linebacker. And now that Iowa defense is 4th best in college football based on defensive EPA per play. As a prospect, he's got great instincts. His football IQ as a run defender is off the charts. This is a downhill, physical run defender, a short yardage run stopper, has a nose for the football, and a tackling machine who's constantly around the football. In terms of improvements, he's not an elite athlete. Like, he's probably going to go through the draft process and not put up some crazy numbers. He's more of a straight line mover. He's not the best moving laterally. So that change of direction ability might not pop in a few months from now. He looks like an ideal will linebacker in a 4-3. But in 2024, if you're just looking at the surface numbers, he's one of the best run defending linebackers in the country right now. That Iowa run defense has been allowing an average of 62 rushing yards per game. He leads the team in tackles with 34. He's only got 1 tackle missed so far this season. And this week they go up against an Ohio State Buckeye offense that is 5th in total offense, 4th in scoring offense, and tied for 1st in red zone offense in the entire country. In fact, they're scoring 100% of the red zone opportunities so far this year, which is nuts. So how Jay Higgins handles Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson will be one of the more fascinating battles to watch. So make sure you are keeping an eye on Jay Higgins, as it sounds like similar to Nakobe. I think he's a better run defender for sure. So let's roll into our game of the week. It is Ole Miss versus South Carolina. Ole Miss struggled offensively, I think truly for the first time this season against Kentucky. And then I'll throw it to you, Ryan. What are you watching out of this one?
Yeah, listen, I always like to watch a team that got upset the week before and see how, they, as not only individuals, but as a team, kind of respond. And, again, this offense, was stifled by that Kentucky defense. And, I really want to see how, Trey Harris and Dart and the whole, crew there offensively respond. So South Carolina certainly can, be susceptible. But they have certainly played very well this year. And if honestly, some would say if it wasn't for an injury to what's this? I'm forgetting his name. Lenoris
Sellers.
Thank you. They could be 4-0 as well. So, again, I think I look for Ole Miss to respond offensively and really kind of prove that it was just kind of a fluke the week before versus Kentucky. But listen, don't sleep on the Gamecocks either. It's in South Carolina, so it's going to be rowdy down there. The only thing is, I will say, is South Carolina is dealing with some injuries. So we'll see if that truly affects their ability to stay in this game.
What about you, Mark?
I think the big matchup to watch for is in the trenches Ole Miss last week really struggled with Deion Walker and Kentucky's defensive linemen. In South Carolina, you've got Kennard, who has, I believe, 6.5 sacks on the year so far. And you've got Dylan Stewart, who's been unbelievable so far this year as a freshman there. Normally, I'd probably bet Ole Miss here in a bounce back spot, -9.5. They're a team that can put it up on the board and run up the score. But that concerns me in the trenches there with Kennard and Stewart. So this is a game I'm staying away from a gambling standpoint. I think Ole Miss should win it. It could end up being kind of closer than the experts think, though.
Yeah, there's some fun underrated edge rushers in this game. You mentioned Kyle Kennard, who's putting up monster numbers this year. That was one of our highlighted guys last week. You've got Princely Umanmielen, an edge rusher for Ole Miss, a transfer out of Florida. As Eagles fans, we're definitely interested in those 6'5", 6'6" kind of dudes, and he's got immense athleticism. Another guy to keep an eye out for is Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss. Another really interesting guy when it comes to measurables and physicals, and this is a guy that checks off all the boxes when it comes to length and athleticism, and a guy that has good bend and can also set an edge and be great against the run. Through 4 games, Jared Ivey has 13 pressures and 4 sacks. He's been really good. So definitely some underrated guys to know when it comes to both of these teams. I definitely feel like this has got Ole Miss written all over it in a game where that offense just gets back on pace with what we've seen in the previous weeks. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on the game or picks?
Yeah, no, Mark's right. This one is, you kind of look at the lines and everything. It's definitely one to perhaps avoid this week. Honestly, I can't get a good read of whether or not the Gamecocks will be able to cover. So, yeah, glad I said that.
I would lean Ole Miss.
I would too, but again, as far as covering.
Yeah, no, the covering. I would probably lean South Carolina when it comes to the cover. But it's going to be a close game, I think.
Yeah, it should be a fun one to watch for sure. Let's get into our player of the week predictions. Going back to last week, Mark, you crushed it. I picked the wrong Ashton Genty week, apparently. Just had a monster, 250 rushing yard game. I think 3 scores. So you got the nod there with 3 points. What's that?
He ran away with it, literally.
Oh, yeah. He's a beast. I went with RJ Harvey. And then Shane went with Seth Hennigan. Who is – I'm drawing a blank who
Memphis
that is.
Quarterback.
Who?
Memphis quarterback.
Quarterback. Okay. And then, Ryan, you went with Woody Marks. Let's get into our player of the week predictions for week 6. Mark, lead us off, man. Who you going with?
To help with my homework workload, I'm going with the same guy I just talked about. I'm going with Trey Harris again. I think Trey Harris can have a big game in that game against South Carolina, even if they struggle in the trenches a little bit, just like they did last week. They struggled in the trenches. He had 11 catches for 176 yards and a touchdown. He's averaging 10 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown every game. I think that should place me high if he puts up one of those games again. And he's had some games better than that, obviously, if he's averaging that. So give me Trey Harris. I won't talk too much more about the guy.
Ryan and I do college football shows on Sunday, and we're always kind of just scrambling and catching up with, what are we going to do? We have a saying, when in doubt, just pick an Ole Miss player. Yeah. A running back or a wide receiver or quarterback. It's pretty much a lock.
Pretty much.
For last week. Ryan, who's your player of the week?
So I'm going to go with somebody a little local, and it's running back Katron Allen. He's splitting carries right now with Nick Singleton up in Happy Valley, but I was really impressed with him last week. So far this year, he has just under 300 yards and the 1 touchdown on the ground. But, I'm liking the Penn State run attack. And I feel like this, could be a week where maybe they're up quite a bit, and Singleton takes a little bit of a rest, and Allen might get some garbage time there against another garbage UCLA team. So I could definitely see Allen kind of putting up some decent numbers, and but again, I also like like I said, what he did last week. So it's definitely an interesting prospect, and certainly I'm paying attention to that rush attack and how they're splitting carries, because it's almost down the middle, honestly, through the season so far.
Let's go back to the SEC. I'm going to strike while the iron is hot. We're talking Alabama, right there with Jeremiah Smith in terms of top freshman wide receiver. It is Ryan freaking Williams who is putting up a show down there for Bama last week. He won them the game. They were down 34-33 with 2.5 left, and the adjustment, the ability to keep his feet from landing out of bounds, his elusiveness to get away from 2 Georgia defenders, and then the breakaway speed, man. This guy is a Devontae Smith clone. And in that game, he had 6 catches for 177 yards and a touchdown. He also had a 54-yard reception in the third quarter. This guy is only 17 years old and already looks like a star. He's already got 6 receptions of at least 40 yards through his first 4 games, man. Alabama takes on Vanderbilt this week, who is 2-2 and 0-1 in the SEC so far. They're coming off of back-to-back losses to Georgia State and Missouri in overtime, and Vandy doesn't have the best defense. I think in terms of just like Trey Harris. Ryan Williams is right there. Ryan Williams is right there in terms of elite downfield threat, man. That guy is a burner, and we're going to be talking about him for a long time. So, Ryan Williams here. You're going Trey Harris, and I already forgot it. Katron Allen for Ryan. Let's wrap this thing up. Ryan, final thoughts, plugs. Time's yours, man.
Listen, despite the advice from Mark to go apple picking, there are plenty of good games that I'm certainly going to be paying attention to, especially in the Big Ten. Obviously some of the marquee matchups are coming up in the next couple of weeks here, but still, I want to see, Penn State again, number 7 ranked, going against a really bad UCLA team. I would like to see them, trounce them. Outside of that, in the Big Ten, there's OSU, Iowa, going to be paying attention to. There's Missouri, Texas A&M. In fact, I think that might be the only official top 25 ranked game this week. So there's definitely, some good matchups, that's for sure, that I know I'll be loving watching, and I'll be loving not having to go apple picking. So.
I'll be tailgating for the Phillies. The game's at 4, so I'll have the noon slate. I'll be fully locked into the noon slate. So Missouri, I do like Missouri in that game. I think that'll be a fun one, and it's kind of like a prove it if you're Missouri. Some ACC matchups like Louisville and Boston College. Like if Boston College can beat Virginia, if Louisville can beat SMU, maybe they can look like ACC championship contenders potentially. My favorite bet of the day, just to close it out on final thoughts here, is Duke plus 9.5 at Georgia Tech at night at 8:00. I don't know why Georgia Tech's favored by 9.5 against anybody. They beat Florida State by a field goal. They've beaten Georgia State and VMI. They lost to Louisville by 12, didn't cover. I don't really understand why there's any Georgia Tech optimism for them to be a big favorite. So I like Duke. By the way, fun name. Duke's running back, Star Johnson. That's fun name.
That's really good. I think Duke is a little inconsistent.
Yeah.
I think I had them beating North Carolina last week after North Carolina got trounced by 70 points or something.
They were losing 20-0 and came back and won 21-20.
Yeah. I picked Duke, and I thought that was an easy L, and that was shocking. They came back and won by a point.
Yeah.
They kind of remind me like they're like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football. Like they just want to play defense and win a close like 3-point game. Like, and it feels like Malik Murphy and Star Johnson, there's enough on the ground that they have at least a floor on offense to score 14, 20 points. And then if you're betting plus 9.5, you just need Georgia Tech to not score 30. And they can't really run the ball, Georgia Tech, outside of their quarterback. So I don't know. I think Duke could win the game, but if it was a 3-4 point spread, I wouldn't even look at it. But 9.5, I think that's disrespectful to the Duke defense. Manny Diaz has it going there a little bit. Penn State DC from the last couple of years.
I'm excited for the Ohio State Iowa game, and mostly because Ohio State kind of has the star names like Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson and all that kind of stuff, and rightfully so. And they're starting to get really good, but I think one of the more underrated running backs in college football this year, and arguably RB1 in college football right now, is Caleb Johnson and that rushing offense. So I'm interested to see how Iowa runs on Ohio State, and Ohio State's defense is so elite. So I'll be watching that. Ryan, anything you want to plug before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore. So. Yeah, just I don't know. Just to make sure you're following Eagles Pin Pull Network on X and wherever you find your podcasts. So,
what about you, Mark?
You can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ Tough Cover Radio Show every week on Fox Sports The Gambler 11 to 1 on Saturday. I guess that's just going to probably be like, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, like a Phillies preview show every Saturday. Hopefully the next couple of weeks, at least this week, it definitely will be. So tune into that if you're a Phillies fan out there. We'll talk some NFL and college football as well, though.
Nice.
Stay tuned for Party on Broad on my network. That was we've got another part 2 of our Sixers preview with Sean Bernard, talking Sixers role players and breaking down some in-depth analysis on each of those role players. So be on the lookout for that. We do like 3 shows a week. So make sure you check us out on Sunday as well, talking more college football reaction to the weekend's games. He is Ryan Reese at Philly Sports PSA. That is Mark at Mark Henry Jr. _ on X. Thank you everyone for watching. Stay awesome.